I'm actually scared to count the number of books on my physical TBR because I've never had them all sitting together in one area before and I've never counted them. So I have absolutely no idea how many books are on my physical TBR, but we're gonna go through them all together and I will count them all at the end of the video. But listen, I know that this is a problem. I know that this is not normal to have this many books on your physical TBR, but we are going to cut this physical TBR down together. I haven't decided how I want to format these videos, but I'm going to do an entire series on my channel this year trying to cut down my physical TBR. We're gonna read them together. I just haven't figured out a theme for those videos. I have a couple ideas. I'm not sure how I want them organized, so let me know if you have any suggestions in the comments, but I'm gonna bring you closer so I can actually like sit and talk to you, and we're gonna go through every single one of these books. I will say I do thrift a lot of my books, which I think is part of the reason why I have so many books on my physical TBR. Like, I just love to go through the books at the thrift store. It's so fun, and I'm also like, well, if I ever want to read this book, I'm never again gonna find it for 50 cents, you know what I mean? So a lot of these books might look read already. That's because they have been, just not by me. Okay, let's start with the books that are surrounding me so I can actually get in the center of the frame rather than off to the side like this. But you can see I've got a lot of books surrounding me right now, so I can't really get to the middle of the camera. Also, this is my TBR cart. I will link it below. I just did a whole video reorganizing all of my books, and I got this TBR cart for Christmas and I love it so much. I just think it goes so much better with my room than my old TBR cart did. But let me just start with these books that are stacked in front of me that I don't keep on my TBR cart. I have 3 areas in my room where I keep my books, well, my TBR books. I have a stack that's my 25 books I want to read in 2025, and then I have a bunch of my pretty leather bound special edition kind of books above my dresser, and then I also have one shelf of my bookcase dedicated to books I haven't read yet because I want to haul those books before I put them with the rest of my physical TBR. And then obviously I have my TBR cart as well. So lots of different areas where I keep my TBR. I'll start with a couple new additions to the TBR. I actually got this book from a free little library. This is The Blue Bistro by Ellen Hildebrand. And when I'm unhauling my books, I normally give them to secondhand shops. But if I don't have that many books to where I can justify actually going out to the secondhand shop, I'll just bring them to a free little library. So that's how I ended up with this book, because I saw it there and I was like, wait, I actually really want to read this. One of my goals is to read every single Ellen Hildebrand book, and obviously having the physical copy means I'm going to get to it a lot quicker than if I just got it from the public library. Honestly, from my physical TBR, you would have no idea that I love the public library, but I do. So that's honestly the only reason I picked this one up. I have no idea what it's about. A summer of secrets may change her life forever. Will love find her at the Blue Bistro? Oh, James Patterson has a quote on this too. That's funny. Anyways, that's the only reason I picked this one up. I also just already know that I love Ellen Hildebrand. A newer edition as well. This is Let's Call Her Barbie, and I discovered this author last year. She made it to my top 24 books of 2024. I read Fifth Avenue Glamour Girl by her, and I think I ranked it like 3rd or 4th of all the books I read last year, so I was very excited to see this book on her backlist. So excited, like ecstatic, because like I said, discovered her last year, loved her so much, and I also am just obsessed with Barbie. I've been obsessed with Barbie my whole life, but when the Barbie movie came out, I think, what was that, 2 years ago maybe? That rekindled my love for Barbie like as an adult, so I'm obsessed with Barbie, and this is a historical fiction obviously about the creation of Barbie, so very, very excited for this one. I'm probably gonna read that one pretty soon because I have been wanting to read that book ever since I read Fifth Avenue Glamour Girl by that author. And then you can see this book was well loved. My little sister actually gave me this. She said she read it in school and she was gonna get rid of it. She was like, I'm never gonna read it again, you know what I mean? So this is the Joy Luck Club. I honestly don't know what this is about, but she gave it to me and I was like, oh, like, did you like it? She was like, not really, but you might like it. So she gave it to me. And then I have When No One Is Watching. This is a similar story. My sister also gave me this. She was getting rid of it and I was like, I will take that. Thank you so much. I don't think she ever read it though. I can't remember. It looks like it's been read, but I can't remember if she said she liked it or not. And then I have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I'm actually very excited to read this one, mostly because it's on the Rory Gilmore reading challenge, and then also I want to read, I think it's The Diaries of Sylvia Plath. I can't remember what it's called. Oh no, it's The Unabridged Journals. So I figured I would pick this one up. I got it from a used bookstore. I'm not entirely sure what it's about, to be honest, but I mostly want to read it because it's on the Rory Gilmore reading challenge, and you guys know I have been posting Rory Gilmore reading vlogs for a while because I'm trying to get through that reading challenge. It's just so long that it's taking me a really long time to get through it all. I think it's like 200 books or more than 200 books or something like that. And then I have A Man Called Ove. I think it's Ove. I'm not entirely really sure, but this author I've read, I think I've only read Anxious People by him, and I really enjoyed that book. I might have read another one. For some reason I feel like I have, but this book is always talked about, always raged about, and you can see I got it for $1 from my public library because they do like those book sales, not pretty frequently. They normally only have like a couple books out, but I saw this one and I was like, yes, I need that. Actually, funny story behind this was that I didn't have $1, but my dad was at the public library with me and I was like, do you have $1? Like, I really want this book. Do you have $1? And he was like, I think I might have $1. So we like were searching for $1. He ended up having one. Basically, my dad bought me this book because the way my library does it, you like pick up the book and then there's like a little slot for the $1 and you just put the $1 in the slot. Like, you don't really like go and pay for it like up at the front because it's only $1, but I did not have $1. Now I know I need to keep dollars with me when I'm going to the public library because I always look and see what they have. This is the first time I've ever bought anything from there though. I also want to read Beartown by this author as well, but I'm going to read this one first because, spoiler alert, I do not own Beartown. Of all of these books, I don't have any of the Beartown series. And then my next book is nonfiction. I don't have a ton of nonfiction, but it is a genre that I'm trying to branch out into. This is actually a book that, again, my little sisters gave me. It's Seinfeldia and it follows the Seinfeld show, and I used to really like that show. I haven't watched it in a long time. I just don't really turn on the TV anymore, but I used to love that show, and I believe it's all about like the creation and behind the scenes of the show, and I love books like that. Specifically, I'm thinking of like memoirs that I've read before, and I've never read a book tailored like this. I've normally just read a memoir that talks about like the behind the scenes of the show and movie industry. And then we'll talk about all of these books together. I have a couple series that I own the entire series because, well, first off, I ask for the book sets for Christmas, my birthday, anything like that, any celebration where someone wants to give me something. I'm like, just get me a book set. Like, just get me a book, that's it. I'll be happy. But my mom got me this entire set for Christmas. I actually just picked up Games Untold because for some reason it didn't come with the set, but I'm pretty sure it's part of this series. And I like having the entire series before I actually start to read the book because sometimes I will either binge the entire series, but then also sometimes I will vlog it. So I've done a couple of different videos on my channel where I read the entire series of like a popular series for a video, and I love doing those videos. So this is definitely going to become a reading vlog, hopefully soon. I really want to get to these. For some reason, I am struggling to see in my contacts all of a sudden, so I can't tell if I look crazy in this lighting or not. Anyways, I can't see, but hopefully you can see fine. Another series I have the entire series of is the Shatter Me series for the exact same reason. My dad got me this entire series for Christmas, and I'm going to vlog this entire series. It's going to be a reading vlog. Really hoping that I'll be able to get to this one soon as well, but you'll see. I have a couple series. I think I have 3 series where I have the entire set already because I want to film them for a reading vlog. I have these. They're a dystopian, and then next we'll actually get to some of the prettier books I have that I normally just keep on my dresser, but I actually do want to read these. But whenever I find books like these at thrift stores, used bookstores, some of these did come from Barnes & Noble, but they're kind of expensive from Barnes & Noble, but whenever I find them, I pick them up. Not normally from Barnes, because like I said, they're pretty expensive at Barnes, but this one is a very recent thrift find for me. This is Wicked, Son of a Witch. When I found this at the used library, I was like, used bookstore, used library. When I found this there, I was like, you immediately coming home with me. I love books like this. You can tell because I have a pretty good amount of books like this. The leather bound, foiled edges, obsessed with books like these. I actually do want to read this book. I think that this is actually on the Rory Gilmore reading challenge as well. And I haven't seen the Wicked movie because I actually want to read the book before I do that. So this is actually 2 books in one, I believe. I believe it's Wicked. Yes, it's Wicked and Son of a Witch. This one is actually on my 25 books I want to read in 2025 because I've had it for so long and I still have not read it. This is Classic Fairy Tales, and these are all the fairy tales by Hans Christian Andersen. I have started it, but it's so many fairy tales, guys. Like, it's crazy. This one came from Barnes & Noble, so I'm probably spent like 30 bucks on it or something crazy like that, but I'm obsessed with these books. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I love them so much. This one, you can tell I thrifted. It is so beautiful, but it has unfortunately been very yellowed. I still am obsessed with it. It's so beautiful, and it's got like the little paint splatters on the edges, which I just think is so cool. But I think this is 4 books in one. Yes, it's Jane Eyre, which I've always wanted to read and I have not read. Maxims and Reflections, which I've never heard of. Essays of Ilia and the Rebirth of Omar Khayyam. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that very bad. badly. Honestly, the only book in here that I've heard of is Jane Eyre, and that was enough for me to buy it. I probably would have bought it even if Jane Eyre wasn't in this because I love old books like this. And then I also thrifted this one. This is Tennyson to Whitman. It's just a Harvard edition of poems. Hey, I like poetry and this is beautiful. I was shocked actually when I saw this in the thrift store because it's in perfect condition. Like, it looks brand new. And then this one I think I also got from, yeah, Barnes & Noble. Hey, it was only $25, not $30. Slay. It's the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. I mostly got this because if you didn't know, Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses is actually based on a Grimm's fairy tale. And I didn't know that until I was doing a research paper for school. I don't know what topic it was on or anything like that, but I said that in the research paper because that's how like I found out. And my professor was like, you should read that Grimm's fairy tale. It's very interesting to like read the fairy tale and then like see the Barbie 12 Dancing Princesses movie because it's very different. Obviously the Grimm's version is a lot more grim. I've only read a couple stories out of here. I think I've read 3 or 4, but I do eventually want to read all of them. And then the last leather-bound book I have is Little House, the first 5 novels. I don't know if this is actually all of them. I just assumed that it was all of them, but now that I read it, wouldn't it just say like the complete? Yeah, I don't think it is all of them. Oh my gosh, this is so pretty. That's so pretty. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked, but it has Little House in the Big Woods, Farmer Boy, Little House on the Prairie, On the Banks of Plum Creek, By the Shores of Silver Lake. And I honestly don't know what this book is about, to be very honest, but I'm definitely gonna read it and it's beautiful. Okay, we're gonna keep it going with the pretty books because I have I'm pretty sure I have all of Jane Austen's work in these Penguin edition cloth bound classics versions. And honestly, I don't want to thrift my classics anymore. I want to get all of my classics like this. I'm obsessed with these. They're so beautiful. So I'm gonna rapid fire all of them. I've only read one Jane Austen book, so the rest of these are on my physical TBR. The one I read from her was Pride and Prejudice, and I read that last year. So I have Emma, Love and Friendship and Other Useful Writings. I think this one might be my favorite cover actually. Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, Mansfield Park, and Sense and Sensibility, which Sense and Sensibility is actually on my 25 books I want to read in 2025. So I'm definitely going to get to this book this year, which is a nice pivot because we're actually going to talk about the rest of the books on my 25 books I want to read in 2025 before we move on to my book cart, which I actually want to move you a little bit. I don't know if I like that I'm off to the side like this, but we're just going to keep going. I have The Lost Man by Jane Harper. I have said I was going to read this book for years, like actually years. This has made it on so many monthly TBRs and I just haven't picked it up, but I'm gonna pick it up. Like, it's very high on my TBR. I'm going to read it very soon. This follows 2 brothers and they find their 3rd brother dead in the Australian outback. So obviously there's this whole mystery on what happened to him, but at the same time, since they live in the outback, there's not that many suspects. Like, there's not that many people around them for something like this to happen. We'll see what happens. And then I have If He Had Been With Me, which I actually really want to read this in a reading sad books video. So that video idea is definitely on my radar because I have heard so many people say that this book is so sad, which I'm a little worried about reading it. You know, I have to be in the mood for a sad book, and just currently I'm not in the mood for a sad book. And then I have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I love a good thriller. My cat is playing with her toy right now. You can probably hear it. But like I was saying, I love a good thriller. This one actually barely tells you what this book is about. It literally just says, meet the residents of number 12, a beautiful old apartment building in the city of light. Socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, concierge, everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. See you in Paris. That's all it says. Like, that's not really a great synopsis, but so many people love this book. This is actually a reread, which I think I have a couple rereads on this TBR cart as well. I know I have one more that I'm going to talk about that's on my 25 books I want to read in 2025, but this is Anne Frank's The Diary of a Young Girl. Like I said, I have read this already, but I read it in a class setting. I'm pretty sure I read it sometime either late elementary school or maybe middle school. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to read this just outside of class, just for pleasure, you know? I just feel like it's a different experience when you read books outside of the classroom versus reading them in the classroom, you know? And then I have The Help, which one of my friends actually recommended this book to me. She was like, you would love this book. And it's funny because she said that to me, and then a couple days later I went thrifting and then I saw this book there and I was like, that's crazy. She literally was just telling me about how I should read this book, and now here it is. So I bought it from the thrift store. It's actually in great condition too. And honestly, I bumped this up from my physical TBR because of the little review that's on the front. It says, this could be one of the most important pieces of fiction since To Kill a Mockingbird. If you read only one book, let this be it. And I was like, sold. Like, that little review, my friend raving about this book, sold. It's also a movie, I believe, So I'm just very late to the game on this one. I haven't seen the movie, haven't read the book. Speaking of being late to the game, I also want to read You. Have I watched the TV show? No, I have not. And that is because I was about to watch the TV show actually, and then I found out that it's a series, or maybe it's a trilogy. Either way, there's more than one book, and I thrifted this one. I say thrifted, but I got it from a used bookstore, so I feel like it's a little different. But I saw this one there and I was like, okay, perfect. Like, I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna read it. It's been sitting on my physical TBR for about a year now. So I need to actually get around to this book because I want to watch the TV show eventually as well. Also, this book sounds like it's perfect for when it's colder outside because it sounds very spooky. Like, I'm pretty sure our main character is stalking the girl character in this book. Yeah, it says as Joe invisibly and obsessively takes control of Beck's life. So something crazy is gonna go down in this book. I can feel it. I don't remember. I think that this is a thriller. It's giving me thriller vibes. It might just be a fiction book though. I'm not sure. And then this one is kind of a reread. You can see this is how far I got when I picked up this book like years ago. I think I was probably in middle school when I started reading this series. This is the Maze Runner series and it's book 2. It's the Scorch Trials. And I read book 1 last year. So I don't want to wait too long to keep going with this series. But if you aren't familiar with the Maze Runner and this book became a movie. They might have also made one other movie. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically a dystopian world where in the first book, it's a group of boys and they're all literally living inside of a maze and they're trying to figure out how to get out of this maze. And then we have book 2, which I'm hoping will leave off where book 1 ended, because when books don't do that, it drives me crazy when they're like jumping around too much. And then this one is also a reread, but I'll just talk about it quickly. I want to reread the entire Cinder series. I think that this is book 2. I'm pretty sure this is book 2. It might be book 3. I can't remember actually. I think it's book 3. Yes, this is book 3. I read book 2 last year. This is Cress, and each book in the Lunar Chronicles follows a different fairy tale. So the first book was Cinderella, the second book was Red Riding Hood, and then I'm assuming this one is Rapunzel. I think I remember this book a lot, but the whole reason I started rereading these books is because I realized when I had read them originally, because it's been so long since I read these books, the last book was not out in the series, so I never read the last book that's in the series. So I own the entire series and then I bought the last book in the series so that I can reread them all and read the last book. I'm gonna move you closer so that we can talk about the top shelf of my TBR cart. I'm actually obsessed with my TBR cart. Like, I think, oh wait, I forgot that I have a whole stack of books right next to my TBR cart. Hold on. I was sitting in front of them, so I didn't see them. We'll just go through these quickly because these are actually all series. And again, like I said, I like to have the entire series because sometimes I binge them and I like to do reading vlogs of the entire series. So I have the entire The Natural series, which is a YA. It might be either mystery or thriller. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you basically have these kids that are helping the FBI solve cases, which I think is so cool. So this is definitely going to be a reading vlog eventually. And then I'm not sure if I want to make these books a reading vlog or not. I haven't decided, but I think that this is the entire Percy Jackson series. I might be missing a book. I'm not sure, but it's 5 of the Percy Jackson books. So I have The Lightning Thief, The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. I don't know why I ended up with this entire series when I don't think I actually read any of the books. I think I might have read part of the first book. I don't know how I ended up with them all, but I have seen the movies, or at least the first 2 movies. They never made the rest of the movies. And then I also have 2 more books in the Maze Runner series, which I think there's more books out that I don't have. I think it goes The Kill Order and then The Death Cure. I'm not entirely sure though. Now we'll move on to the books on top of my book cart. We're just gonna start from this side. This is Carnegie Trade. Do I remember what this book is about? No, I do not, but my battery died, which means I've been yapping for way too long. But I was basically saying that I have no idea what this book is about because one year for Christmas, my boyfriend and I decided to thrift each other gifts, and so he bought me a couple books from the thrift store. I don't remember what this one was about for some reason, but I remember reading the synopsis and being like, oh, I'll definitely read this book. I don't think that this is the one that followed World War II. I think that that's a different one. You guys already know I love Ellen Hildebrand and I want to read every single one of her books. My sister actually thrifted this book for me, which is crazy because it's in beautiful shape. But this is the 5-Star Weekend by her, and I believe that this follows our main character who is going through a rough patch, so she decides to plan what she thinks will be like the perfect 5-star weekend, and obviously things don't go her way. You know, she's not gonna have the perfect weekend. And then I have Look Alive 25. My aunt actually gave me this book because I was visiting her and she had just finished this book and she was like, do you want it? Like, I don't keep my books. I don't really have room to keep them. Like, do you want this book? And I was like, sure, like I'll take it if you don't want it. Which I actually haven't read any of this author's work, but she has so many books published. Like, I'm constantly seeing this author in thrift stores, and the public library has a massive section of all of her work. So definitely a very popular author. And then I have The Lost Constitution, which I also thrifted this book. And I picked this book up mostly because when I read the synopsis, it reminded me a lot of the Da Vinci Code and that whole entire Robert Langdon series, which I read that entire series and I actually really enjoyed all of those books. So this book is historical fiction and I have high hopes for it. And then I have Amazing Grace Adams, which I actually really want to get to this book pretty soon. My mom actually ordered this book for me, which I thought was so sweet because she saw it on the Today Show, but she saw it on there and she was like, I thought that you would like this book, so I ordered it for you. And I was like, that is actually so sweet. So I definitely want to read this book so I can tell her that I read it. And then I have When We Were Bright and Beautiful. My little sister actually gave me this book because she had thrifted this book and she made the most beautiful bookmarks, and everyone in our family got a handmade bookmark and a book for Christmas one year, and it was such a thoughtful and cute Christmas idea, so I just loved that. But I'm pretty sure someone dies in this book. It's either, for some reason I feel like it's like a couple and one of them dies and it's a mystery or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest. And then I have Endgame: The Calling. This is the one book on my physical TBR that I'm iffy about if I'm going to read it or not. I will probably read the first couple chapters and then decide, because I always like to give the book a chance, you know? But the only reason that I ended up with this book is because my sister gave me 22 books for my 22nd birthday and she thrifted them all, which is also such a thoughtful gift idea if you have any readers in your life. But this ended up being one of those books which I want to try it, because just because it's a book I might not pick out for myself doesn't mean it's a book that I'm not going to enjoy. So that's how I feel about this one. Okay, this is the book that I was talking about that my boyfriend gave me that I actually remember the synopsis of. This is We Were Strangers Once, and this follows a Jewish man who is fleeing. He's escaping Germany and ends up in Manhattan, which I've never read a book where the main character is escaping, like actually successfully escapes. So I'm very intrigued by this one, and I love a good World War II book. That one is obviously historical fiction. And then I have Tony and Susan, which you can tell was an old library book, which I just think is hilarious. But also at the same time, I wish it didn't have this like plastic around it, but oh well. This book actually sounds really interesting. So it follows a divorced couple and one of them writes a book and he sends the other his manuscript to like read. I think she might be editing it, I'm not entirely sure, but basically it's the manuscript inside of the book. I actually really enjoy when books have books inside them or like manuscripts inside them. And then this one is another thrifted one. You can tell this is Zoya, which this book is actually hilarious to me because it's the large print edition. Like look how giant that is, which I don't know, I just think that's really funny. I actually don't remember what this book is about, but my boyfriend thrifted this one for me. And then we actually have two rereads back to back on this cart. So One of Us is Lying, which is a YA. I think it's a mystery. Yeah, I think I would constitute this as a mystery. And I kept this because I never read One of Us is Next, which is the next book in this little duology. But I remember really enjoying this one, and basically it is, I think 4 or 5 students end up in, what is it called when you get in trouble in school? Detention. They end up in detention and then one of them dies. And it's a whole mystery on how that person died in detention. And then I have 2 of Harper Lee's books. So I have To Kill a Mockingbird, which this would be a reread for me, which I haven't read this book since middle school. So as an adult, I definitely want to read this book. And then I have Go Set a Watchman, which I remember being so excited for this book when it came out, and then I never read it. So, and then I have When Rivers Rise. This is the first book, and I think what ends up being a trilogy, I can't exactly remember, but this follows the aftermath of Hurricane Florence across North Carolina's coast. So I think that this would be very interesting to read. Obviously historical fiction, and I love a good historical fiction. At least I'm assuming it's historical fiction if it's following Hurricane Florence. And then I have a book that actually scares me a lot. This is Credence by Penelope Douglas. I have heard so many mixed reviews about this book, which is part of why it scares me, but also it just looks a little creepy, you know? I can't remember what this book's about, but it looks creepy and it's a thick one. I'm definitely gonna give that one a try though. And then I have City of Darkness and Light, which I thrifted this book so long ago that I don't remember what it's about. Based on the cover, it's a mystery, and that's all I know. And then I have this little duology. I think that this is the correct order. It's There Are No Saints and There Is No Devil, which I'm pretty sure this is dark romance, and I've never read any dark romance books before, so a little bit nervous about these as well. And then I have a little mystery, which actually says that there's a little Netflix TV show that goes along with this book, and I haven't heard anything about this book or the TV show. This is Any Other Name. All I remember about this is that it's a mystery, which you can tell I like mysteries and I like thrillers. And then I'll move you back for the bottom 2 shelves. Okay, you're not gonna be able to see these shelves super nicely, which is fine because I'll just pull them out and show you the books anyway. But we'll actually start with a book that is very near and dear to me. Oh, I can't get it out. So So hold on, hold that thought. This is Pop Nose. I'm not sure if this is on Amazon or not yet, but I will link it if it is. It is a unique collection of life lessons for children and parents, so very excited for that one. And then you guys already know I'm obsessed with the Magnolia Park series, so I have the last 2 books still on my TBR, and I'm debating if I want to read them right away or if I want to space them out and savor it until the last book comes out. But it goes Daisy Haynes' The Great Undoing, and then I have Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. And if you don't know anything about the Magnolia Parks universe, they are toxic romances and they remind me a lot of Gossip Girl. So if you like Gossip Girl and you're looking for Gossip Girl in book form, highly recommend these books. They basically follow socialites in London, rich people, gang members. It's great. It's truly amazing. And then I have The Deadly Hours, which I'm actually really curious about this book because there's 4 different authors in here, and I think each author kind of wrote a little bit of a short story type of situation inside this book, so I think that's really interesting and I'm excited to see how these all connect. And then I have The Girls in the Stilt House. For some reason this book always reminds me of Where the Crawdads Sing, but I loved Where the Crawdads Sing, so that means I have high hopes for this book. And then if you've always wondered what this little book is that I've turned the wrong way, it is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This is part of the 22 books my sister gave me, and I just am not sure if I want to read it. That's why I have it turned out. I'm like, I don't even want to look at it. Like, I don't know if I want to read it because I've heard so many bad things about not only this book, but just like these romances in general, so I'm not sure if I want to read it. I'm debating it. That's why it is sitting on my TBR cart the opposite way, because I just have not decided if I want to read it or not. And then I have How to Walk Away by Catherine Center. The only reason that this has sat on my TBR for so long is because I saw Haley Fan read this book and she really enjoys this author and this book as well, but she did say that this is a very sad book and to read this when you're in the right headspace, so that scared me a little bit. I just don't want to be sad, you know? I literally just said I don't want to read sad books right now. I can't handle it. It's too cold and sad outside for me to also read sad books, okay? And then I have Ask Again Yes, which I believe follows a family that lives on the outskirts of New York City, or maybe they live in like the suburbs of New York somewhere. I'm not entirely sure, but I do remember one of our main characters works for the NYPD. I just remember thinking it sounded interesting, and I also recognized this cover. You can tell I also thrifted this book as well. And then you can see here is where I keep all of my nonfiction, so we're gonna quickly go through all of these books. I'm not gonna talk about them for too long. First off, I have The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts. My mom read this book and she loved it so much that she bought every single person in my family a copy of this book, and I've had this book sitting here for years and I just haven't read it, but I obviously want to read it. I'm just a lot slower to read nonfiction books than I am like the rest of my books. And then I have The Psychology of Money. This is a recent add to my TBR. Very excited to read that one. I have The Soul of an Octopus, a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness. I have The Brain That Changes Itself, stories of personal triumph from the frontiers of brain science. My mom actually thrifted this book for me, but my older sister has read it and she said she really liked it. And then I have Silent Spring. I actually was supposed to read this for one of my classes in high school and I never ended up finishing it, but I actually want to circle back and read this book. It is all about environmental science. It says the classic that launched the environmental movement. And then another book that I got pretty far into but just never finished. Was supposed to read this for school and I didn't. This is Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. I don't know, this just sounds interesting to me, so I do eventually want to read it. And then Reasons to Stay Alive. This is, I think it's a memoir actually. For some reason I feel like this is a memoir. I think I looked it up and it said memoir. And then I have pretty much the entire Anne of Green Gables series. I'm actually missing book 3, but I did find it on Amazon in the same edition, so I'm gonna read the first book first before I decide to buy book 3, just in case I don't end up liking them. I have Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Avalonia, Anne of Windy Poplars, Anne's House of Dreams, Anne of Ingleside, Rainbow Valley, and Rilla of Ingleside. These actually might be considered children's books. I can't remember if they're children's or YA. I think they're also classics. I'm not entirely sure. But speaking of classics, I think these next 3 books are all classics. This one I'm not entirely sure if it's a classic or not. This is Heart of Darkness and The Secret Sharer. I don't know how I ended up with this book. That's how long it's been sitting on my TBR. Same story with this one. I don't know how I ended up on my physical TBR. This is The Odyssey by Homer. And then this one is somewhat recent. It's about a year, probably more than that actually. So not recent at all. This is George Orwell's Animal Farm, and I read 1984 by George Orwell. I actually read it in senior year of high school for one of my like English classes, and I actually really liked that book, so hopefully I'll like this one as well. But honestly, every time I see this book, all I can think about is that Good Luck Charlie episode. You know the one. Okay, now we're moving down to this bottom shelf, which you can barely see, but we'll start with a little collection of poems that one of my friends gave me for my birthday, because I say I'm just a girl all the time, and she saw this and she immediately thought of me. This is I'm Just a Girl poem book. I think this is so fun and exciting. Sorry if the angle changed. I'm fighting with my camera right now. And then I have Herman Wonk, Don't Stop the Carnival. I have no idea what this book is about, to be honest. I've had it for so long. It's embarrassing actually how long I've had that book. And then I have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. This is another book I've had on my physical TBR for so long that I forgot what it's about, which the only reason I picked up this book in the first place from the thrift store is because I've seen so many people rave about this book. And then I have Behind the Beautiful Forevers, which my sister actually gave me this book. I think she read it and didn't love it, which was why she was getting rid of it. I don't entirely remember though. And then I have The Orphan House, which I think is historical fiction that follows the past and the present, I think. Something like that. It cracks me up but also annoys me that it has this little great price sticker on it because it's not like actually a sticker. You know what I mean? This is actually my sister's book, but she wanted me to read it, so it's been sitting here for way too long. This is The Forgery of Venus, and she loved this book. I just don't remember what it's about. And then I have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, which I actually think that this is the second book in an interconnected series, so I need to get my hands on the first book before I read this one, which the only reason I ended up with the second book was because I thrifted that one. And then I have The Handmaid's Tale, another book that I thrifted, and I couldn't get the sticker obviously, which is so annoying. But I did start this a long time ago. I got like 20 pages into it and then I just never picked it up again. I don't remember why, because I don't think that this was a bad book. I just think I was probably not in the mood for it and that's why I decided to put it back down. But I did pick this up mostly because it was made into a TV show and I wanted to read the book before watching the TV show, even though I don't have Hulu, so I'm not sure how I think that I'm going to watch this TV show. But I do know that this is a dystopian and I have read other books by this author and I did enjoy them. And then I have Big Summer, which I'm obviously waiting to read this book until it gets warmer outside, so it's not on my radar for right now, but eventually I'll read this book. And I've read other work by this author that I enjoyed. And then I have Starlight Nights, which this cover, I can't. I do not like covers like this at all, but this book does sound interesting. It's a romance between two actors, which I think is really fun. And then I have Before We Were Strangers, which I heard so many raving reviews about this book, which is why it's on my physical TBR. You can tell I thrifted it. It's not in great shape, but that's okay. I'm pretty sure it's a second chance romance. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know it's a romance and I think it takes place in New York City. And then this book I was so excited to thrift. This is Things I Wanted to Say by Monica Murphy. I actually went back and searched to make sure that they didn't have the rest of the series there because that would have been so exciting, but I did not see the rest of the series unfortunately. But that's okay because this is the first book in the Lancaster Prep series, which I have seen so many good things about this series, so I'm very excited about this one. I believe it's a romance. I'm pretty sure it's a romance. And then I have Crazy Rich Asians, which I've actually seen this movie, but it's been so long that I don't exactly remember what the movie was about. I saw the movie senior year of high school and we actually watched it in class, so I'm pretty sure it took us like 2 days to watch the movie, and ever since then I wanted to read the book and I found this in the thrift store. And it's actually a trilogy, so this is just the first book in the trilogy. And then I thrifted these two books on the same day at two different thrift stores, which I was so excited to find both of these books at the same day. Like, it was crazy. Like, the first thrift store I found the first book and then I found the second book in the second thrift store. I was ecstatic. Like, actually I was so excited. So first I have Love and Luck, which these are both I think YA romance, and then Love and Gelato. Wait, actually I think it goes Love and Gelato and then Love and Luck. And I think there's one more or there might be two more in this series. Okay, I actually have an entire series that I want to reread. This is the Shattered series, which I read I think in middle school. I'm gonna assume I read them in middle school because I read a lot of dystopian books in middle school, and this is a dystopian trilogy. So I have Shattered. Oh wait, no. It's the Slated series. So I have Slated. This book is Fractured. I just lost the dust cover somehow. And then this one is Shattered. But basically she loses her memory. It's literally slated. I can't remember why. There's some reason that they do that. I don't remember. It's a dystopian. You know, they do crazy things in dystopians. And then I have The Vigilante Poets of Sylvan Academy. This is another YA, and our main character is in high school, I think, and his high school basically gets taken over by this reality TV show that they start filming in his high school, which this premise sounds so interesting to me. And then I actually have a reread. On a reread, Asylum. I just remember loving this book so much that I stayed up the entire night to read this book. Like, I read it in one sitting. So I definitely want to reread this book and then also read the entire series, because I read just this first book and then never read the rest of the series, which is crazy because I actually was obsessed with this book so much that I read it in one sitting. Yet another book that my sisters were getting rid of that I was like, no, I'll take that book, don't worry. So I actually don't remember what this book is about, but I picked it up because I also have another book on my physical TBR by this author. This is the same author of Girl in Pieces, which I'm pretty sure this one is a sad book. I don't think this one is, but I know this one is. And then we'll end off my physical TBR with a book that I want to reread. This is Uglies, which actually just became a movie on Netflix. comics. But I remember reading this book in middle school and being obsessed with it, and then never reading the rest of the series. And I honestly think my problem is when I don't have the rest of the books, I'm not gonna read them. But upon my reread, if I end up liking this book, I will read the rest of the series this time. But I really wanted to reread that book before I watched the movie that just came out. But that is my entire physical TBR. It is now time to count all these books and see how many I have. My camera, of course, died while I was counting them all, but I have 119 books on my physical TBR. I honestly thought it would be more than that. I'm glad that it's not, because this year we are going to get this TBR under control. Let me know if there's any specific themed videos you want to see of me reading my entire physical TBR, because we are going to get through as much of this TBR this year as possible. I'm not putting myself in a book buying ban, I'm not saying that, but I am going to slow down the book buying until I can get this physical TBR under control, which I'm not the kind of person that doesn't like having a physical TBR, obviously, but I do want to read these books eventually. I don't want them to just sit here like little trophies, you know? So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!